Welcome. The rules are simple. In order to dispose of the bomb implanted in your body, you must reach the target point. Keep in mind that there will be various obstacles in your way, so do not be afraid to use whatever means necessary to reach your goal. Good luck.
To understand how we reached the standalone series of the Mercenaries 3D on Nintendo 3DS, you have to travel back to 1999 to the floor and wreckage of Raccoon City. This is where Capcom tucked away a small, high-intensity bonus mode in Resident Evil 3 called Operation Mad Jackal. It wasn't called the Mercenaries yet, but every single foundational pillar of the mode was carved out right here. The premise was deceptively simple. You play as one of three UBSCS mercenaries, Carlos, Mikhail or Nikolai, trapped in a city scheduled for a nuclear cleansing. You have 2 minutes to reach the sales office from the starting trolley, but the path is choked with every nightmare the T-Virus could conjure. This was the first time Resident Evil explicitly rewarded you for being aggressive rather than cautious. In the main game, your instinct is to run. Here, running is a death sentence because you need to buy time by killing enemies. It introduced the time bonus mechanic that still dictates the rhythm of the series today. A zombie kill might net you 3 seconds, while downing a hunter or a nemesis transformation could grant you a massive boost. This created a frantic, psychological tug-of-war. Do you waste your limited magnum round on a difficult enemy to gain 10 seconds, or do you dodge it and pray you can make it to the next checkpoint? Crucially, Mad Jackal also introduced the survivor mechanic. Scattered throughout the city were civilians who, if rescued, would drop ammunition or precious time bonuses. It forced you to master the layout of the city with surgical precision. This wasn't a horror game anymore, it was a movement and a resource puzzle. It stripped away the mystery and replaced it with a pure, mechanical skill check that proved Resident Evil's combat was robust enough to sustain itself without a pivot. It was a big bang of the arcade horror loop, and it would spend the next decade evolving into a monster of its own.
Well, that was impressive. You have earned your reward. And your freedom.
Before the Mercenaries mode could truly evolve into the juggernaut we saw later in the Resident Evil series, its arcade DNA took a fascinating, high-octane detour. Just 1 year after Mad Jackal debuted, Capcom released Dino Crisis 2, and it's impossible to talk about the history of the loop without mentioning it. While the first Dino Crisis was essentially Resident Evil with raptors, the sequel pivoted entirely into a combat-focused shooter that polished the Mercenaries' blueprint to a mirror finish. This is where the combo counter, the lifeblood of any modern Mercenaries run, really found its legs. Dino Crisis 2 introduced extinction points, rewarding you with chaining kills together without taking damage. It shifted the focus from merely surviving the encounter to mastering it. The game encouraged you to stay in the pocket, keep the weapon hot, and maintain a rhythm. If you were too slow or too hesitant, your combo dropped and your score suffered. It was a vital experimental phase for Capcom. They were testing if the survival horror engine could handle the speed of the action arcade game. The Colosseum and the Dino duel modes in Dino Crisis 2 felt like a direct evolution of the Umbrella Chronicles philosophy of forward momentum, but with the added depth of a dedicated shop system to upgrade your arsenal. It proved that players were hungry for a mode that prioritised kill streaks over save rooms. When the series eventually returned to the Mercenaries name in Resident Evil 4, it brought this refined sense of the combo with it, turning a simple timed rescue mission into a high stakes dance of death that required absolute mechanical perfection. When Resident Evil 4 arrived in 2005, it didn't just change the main series, it completely reinvented the Mercenaries. This is the version that most fans consider the big bang for the modern era. By shifting it to the over-the-shoulder perspective, Capcom transformed the mode from a movement puzzle into a high-octane mechanical skill check. You weren't just fighting the clock anymore, you were fighting the 5-star ranking system. The biggest innovation here was the diversity of the roster. For the first time, we had characters with completely unique playstyles that felt like different classes in a fighting game. You had Leon with his balanced kit, Ada with her speed, and the massive heavy-hitting Jack Krauser with his mutated arm, but the real legends born in this version were Albert Wesker and Hunk. Mastering Hunk's iconic neck snap or Wesker's devastating palm strike wasn't just satisfying, it was a tactical necessity. These melee finishers didn't just look cool, they saved ammunition, and most importantly, they gave you those precious extra seconds on the timer. The maps also became iconic, specifically Waterworld, with its terrifying dual chainsaw wielding Super Salvators. The loop was now perfectly refined. Hunt for the time bonus crystals, find a combo bonus chest, and then trigger a killing spree to maximise your score. It was addictive, brutal, and for the first time, the rewards were top tier. Unlocking the hand cannon, a weapon so powerful it could trivialise the main campaign, meant that you had proved your worth in the Mercenaries arenas. It was no longer just a bonus for the hardcore, it was a rite of passage for anyone who wanted to claim they had truly mastered Resident Evil 4. If Resident Evil 4 was the big bang, Resident Evil 5 in 2009 was the mode's absolute apex. This is where the Mercenaries didn't just evolve, it matured into a complex, cooperative tactical shooter. The addition of a second player changed the entire geometry of the arena. No longer were you a lone wolf trying to hold back the tide, you are now half of a two-person fire team, and your survival depended on how well you could sync your movements with a partner. The mechanical depth here was staggering. Resident Evil 5 introduced the idea that a physical attack was more than just a cool animation, it was a time management tool. By setting up the stagger, a shot to the leg or a flash grenade, and following up with a melee finisher, you gained a 5-second bonus to the clock. This created the melee to kill rhythm that defined high level play to this day. You weren't just shooting to kill, you were shooting to set up a kill that would buy you more time. The synergy required for a high score in Resident Evil 5 is what makes it so enduring. Partners could chain melee attacks on bosses or cover each other while one player hunted for time crystals. It also featured an expansive roster that gave us multiple costume versions of characters like Chris, Sheva, Jill and Wesker, each with entirely different loadouts that force you to change your strategy. It turned the Mercenaries into a legitimate competitive sport with the community. For many, the main campaign of Resident Evil 5 was just a tutorial for hundreds of hours they would eventually sink into the mercenary stages, chasing the elusive double S rank with a friend. By June 2011, the Mercenaries brand became so powerful that Capcom decided it was time for a promotion. Instead of being a secondary mode tucked away behind a New Game Plus screen, it became the main event with the series of Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3D on the Nintendo 3DS. This wasn't just a port, it was a mechanical milestone that effectively functioned as the greatest hits of the series' combat system, pulling maps and characters from both Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5 into one portable package. This game is historically significant because it finally broke the tank control curse. For the first time in a Resident Evil title, players were given the ability to move and shoot simultaneously. It seems like a minor tweak in 2026, but in 2011, this was a revolutionary shift that fundamentally altered the pace of the game. You could now back away from an encroaching group of Granados while still laying down suppressive fire, or strafe around a corner to line up a perfect headshot. It made the gameplay feel fluid, modern, and most importantly, built for the precision of the 3DS hardware. The game also introduced a deep dive skill system. Instead of just picking a character with a gun, you could equip and level up various passive abilities, like increased damage for specific weapons or faster health recovery. This added a layer of build crafting that hadn't existed in previous iterations. Even though the game was criticised at the time for its lack of a traditional story mode, it proved that the Mercenaries loop was strong enough to support an entire standalone release. It wasn't about the destination, it was about the perfect 5-minute run, the 100-hit combo, and the tactical mastery of a system that was now officially the heartbeat of the franchise. As the series transitions into the modern era, the Mercenaries didn't just survive, it mutated to match the identity of every new engine Capcom developed. In Resident Evil 6, the mode reached its peak of pure, unadulterated mobility. This was the action movie phase, where the loop was redefined by sliding, diving, and a sophisticated counter-attack system. It was the fastest the mode had ever been, requiring players to master stamina management alongside their aim. If Resident Evil 4 was a dance, Resident Evil 6 was an all-out brawl that pushed the arcade spirit to its absolute limit. When the franchise pivoted to the first-person perspective with the RE engine, the Mercenaries took a brief hiatus before returning in Resident Evil Village. This version introduced a roguelike flair where players could choose between randomised ability orbs to buff their speed, damage or elemental effects. It was a fascinating experiment in first-person combat, trading the tactical melee chains of the past for a more arcade-style experience. It showed that the core philosophy, kill, get time, combo, could work even when the perspective had shifted entirely. Finally, we have the return to form in the Resident Evil 4 remake. This version feels like a bridge between the classic 5-star chase and modern sensibilities. It brought back the iconic characters but added mayhem mode, a unique character-specific super move that allows for massive score padding and strategic breathing room. Whether you're utilising Krauser's transformation or Wesker's lightning fast parries, the Resident Evil 4 remake proves that even decades later, the Mercenaries is still the ultimate way to test the game's mechanical depth. It's a testament to the longevity of the concept. As long as there are monsters to shoot and a timer to beat, the Mercenaries will always be the beating heart of the Resident Evil endgame. The evolution from a hidden minigame in 1999 to a standalone retail release in 2011 is more than just a success story for Capcom's accounting department. It represents the merciless legacy of the franchise. The Mercenaries is where Resident Evil strips away pretension of being a cinematic horror experience and embraces its identity as a mechanical masterpiece. It turns the player of a victim of atmosphere into a master of the systems. In the main campaign, you feared the Granado with the chainsaw. In the Mercenaries, you're just annoyed that he's taken too long to die because he's holding up your combo. As we close the book on this deep dive, it's clear that the Mercenaries 3D served as a vital bridge. It proved that the fun of Resident Evil wasn't just in the scares, but in the precision of the reload, the timing of the parry, and the thrill of the ticking clock. It allowed the series to breathe, providing a sandbox where the developers could experiment with the wild mechanics, like moving while shooting, before they even dared to put them in the mainline numbered entry. It is the ultimate reward for the player, where the experience of this franchise can be perfected in a single 5-minute run. Before the timer hits 0 and the mission ends, make sure to time bonus that subscribe button to keep the combo alive. If you enjoyed this tactical detour, partner act with the like button to keep our channel health in the green. Drop a comment below with your all-time favourite Mercenaries character. Are you a hunk neck snapper or a Wesker palm striker? If you're new to the mission, you can track the entire journey through the Resident Evil Retrospective playlist, covering every entry from the 1996 original to the present day. Next episode, we're heading back to the high seas. After the action-heavy mayhem of the Mercenaries, Capcom decided it was time to bring horror back to its roots, or at least to the middle of the ocean. Get ready, because the next episode is Resident Evil Revelations.
My name is Jill Valentine. I serve the BSAA as a counter-bioterror operative. We've lost contact with Chris, and I've gone into the heart of the storm to find him.
I feel like something's here.
These corpses show signs of viral infection.
This explains our missing crew.
Before I go, a quick thank you to the people helping support the channel. Massive thanks to Joe Peacock, Ross McKellar and Callum MacDonald for becoming members and helping keep the PSX index rolling. Your support genuinely helps me spend more time making these videos and less time worrying about how I'm going to fit them around everything else. Thank you for being a part of the archive. This has been Parasine. The index continues.